Carolina Panthers fans, I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, the energy in the air feels different now that training camp is finally here. Today, some critical news is developing that could shake up everything for our roster as the season approaches. It is not just about the typical excitement of practice, but the heavy pressure mounting on our key guys to define their futures right now. The more details come out, the harder it is to ignore the intensity behind the scenes. Smash that like button, subscribe, and drop your name and city below. Let's get into it. Training camp is finally here, and for us Carolina Panthers fans, this represents the most critical turning point for Bryce Young as he officially enters year 4. Bryce arrived as our heralded top pick with immense pressure to transform this franchise, but his journey has been defined by inconsistent offensive support and constant coaching shifts under Dave Canales. Now, with the stakes higher than ever, it was officially reported that the team is emphasizing chemistry building during these early sessions. The news hit the practice fields this week as the squad reconvened, focusing heavily on integrating a completely reshaped offensive line alongside key newcomers Jonathan Brooks and Chris Brazzell II. Let's be real, the atmosphere among the fan base is a strange mixture of nervous anticipation and desperate optimism. We have seen the struggles, felt the frustration of the past few seasons, and frankly, we are weary of the instability that has plagued our quarterback since day one. This update regarding his urgent need to develop chemistry hits us hard because we know the window for a massive contract extension is closing rapidly. Everyone realizes that while the pads aren't popping yet, the mental foundation being built right now will dictate whether he succeeds or fails in this high-pressure environment. The truth is that we are protective of Bryce, yet we are also exhausted by the lack of tangible progress. Seeing the team prioritize these specific connections during training camp confirms that the coaching staff understands the gravity of the situation just as well as we do. It creates a palpable tension in the air because we know this isn't just another summer of preparation. It is the defining moment for our signal caller and the future of this entire organization as we strive to finally get back to our winning ways and keep pounding. The truth is that the intense pressure surrounding our roster right now is the direct result of a calculated, high-risk rebuild initiated by front office management to escape years of mediocrity. We are seeing these specific training camp battles because the previous regime left a barren cupboard of talent, forcing general managers to overpay for veteran help while simultaneously drafting raw prospects like Xavier Legette and Jonathan Brooks. Historical context reminds us of the failed 2021 experiments where we banked on unproven talent, which ultimately spiraled into a decade-long search for stability. Now, Dave Canales and his staff are quietly worried that if the investment in Jalen Phillips fails to translate into elite double-digit sack production, the entire defensive scheme will crumble under the weight of his massive contract. Behind closed doors, they are questioning if Legette's inability to grasp the playbook is a temporary slump or a fundamental flaw in his professional discipline that echoes our past draft busts. Meanwhile, the organization is desperate for a return on investment regarding Chuba Hubbard, who managed only 3.8 yards per carry last season while fighting through recurring ankle issues that eventually sidelined him for 6 games. This is where it gets real for us as fans because if the offensive line chemistry does not solidify by the end of July, the entire season could derail before we even face our first divisional opponent. The coaches know they have to balance developing young assets like Brooks with the immediate need for veteran consistency to justify their own job security heading into the autumn months. It is a fragile equation where every missed assignment in practice is a flashing warning sign of potential failure. We need these guys to elevate their games immediately if we want any hope of maintaining our identity of keep pounding through a grueling schedule. This is where the rubber meets the road for the Carolina Panthers because training camp is the crucible where fragile potential finally hardens into a legitimate playoff contender. The stakes are immense, as Dave Canales must distill a roster full of questions into a cohesive machine before the lights turn on in September. We are looking at a fundamental shift in our salary cap flexibility and depth chart hierarchy, specifically with high-priced stars and youngsters battling for roster survival. If Bryce Young cannot master the new offensive line chemistry, or if veterans like Chuba Hubbard falter against the rising tide of talent like Jonathan Brooks, we are looking at a ceiling that sits well below our actual talent level. This roster turnover means every rep in camp is a direct audition for a starting role that will dictate our performance in critical divisional matchups against Kellen Moore and the New Orleans Saints. If we cannot solidify these positions, our hopes of overcoming the NFC South will dissolve before the leaves even change. The truth is that a shaky start in camp ripples outward, making games against formidable opponents like the Atlanta Falcons or Seattle Seahawks feel like insurmountable uphill climbs rather than winnable contests. And the more I look at this, the clearer it becomes that our postseason aspirations hinge entirely on whether these specific positional battles result in genuine depth or ongoing liabilities. If Xavier Legette fails to secure his spot as the WR3, we lose the vertical element required to challenge elite secondaries. We need every player to buy in, stay humble, and execute under pressure if we want to change the narrative surrounding this franchise once and for all. Keep pounding. That is the only path forward for a team that has spent far too long sitting on the outside, looking in during January. The training camp pressure on Bryce Young, Xavier Legette, Jalen Phillips, and Chuba Hubbard is palpable. For Young, the strongest argument for this season is that stability under Dave Canales creates the perfect environment to finally unlock his elite playmaking potential and command a massive extension. Conversely, the risk is that if the chemistry with his reshaped line and new targets like Brooks fails to materialize early, the front office might lose patience and pivot to a different direction entirely. Around the league, analysts are closely monitoring the Panthers, with scouts from teams like the Falcons and Saints noting that Carolina has one of the most high-stakes camps in the entire NFL. What nobody is talking about is how these specific position battles will directly influence the team chemistry for the entire year. While Legette faces the heat of trade rumors, a breakout performance could salvage his reputation, yet his inability to hold off Chris Brazzell II would signal a disastrous end to his tenure here. Meanwhile, the spotlight on Jalen Phillips is massive because his contract expectations demand perfection, and anything less puts a strain on the salary cap that hampers our future flexibility. Chuba Hubbard faces a similar crossroads, needing to prove he is more than just a placeholder for the rising rookie Jonathan Brooks. And I will be straight with you. This is the make-or-break stretch for the entire culture of this locker room. If these guys cannot rise to the occasion now, it is hard to envision a path to the playoffs for our squad in this competitive division. We need these guys to show up every single day and embody our team motto because the margin for error in the NFL is razor thin. Keep pounding. The bottom line here is that this training camp serves as the ultimate litmus test for the long-term vision of this franchise under head coach Dave Canales. We are not just watching individual practice reps anymore because these sessions are foundational markers for how this team will operate over the next few seasons. If guys like Bryce Young and Xavier Legette can hit their stride alongside our high-priced veterans, we are looking at a roster that finally matches our aspirations of becoming a legitimate playoff contender. As Carolina Panthers fans, you should feel a sense of cautious optimism heading into this year. The reason for this belief is simple because we are finally seeing accountability at every position, from the battle for the WR3 spot to the pressure on our veteran running backs to maintain their status. When you combine improved coaching chemistry with a renewed sense of urgency, it creates the type of environment where champions are forged. We have the talent, but now it is about proving that we can execute when the lights turn on and the pressure intensifies. This is where it gets real, and it is up to these players to validate the faith we have placed in them. Considering the intense competition for roles across the offensive depth chart, which specific player do you believe is currently under the most pressure to secure their spot on the roster before the season opener? The future of this team hangs on these critical decisions, and I want to hear your take in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Keep pounding. I'll see you in the next one.